This is a $270,000 Lamborghini Urus. Here are all the cool gadgets and gizmos. This is what the key looks like to the Urus. It's actually much weightier than a typical key. On one end it says Lamborghini, and here we've got the panic button for the alarm. On the other end we have a few buttons. Unlock, lock, you can push this one twice to open up the hatch, or you can push the Lamborghini icon and then the key appears. Now the door handles on the Lamborghini are actually surprisingly normal. You pull them, it engages like a little solenoid, and then the door opens electronically. But the coolest part is actually this right here, the frameless glass. That's very unusual for an SUV. And when you close the doors, just close them gently because they're soft close. Now when you open the door to this Lamborghini, you're greeted by these little carbon fiber kick plates. That is a $2,312 option. But the craziest part about this particular Urus is the interior. It's this bright, vibrant blue, and it's in contrast to kind of the exterior color, which is almost a battleship gray. Now this is an interesting name, and most names on this Lamborghini are very Italian. I don't want to butcher it, so I'm just going to font it here, but I kind of love it. I really do, because, you know, the outside's nice and subtle, but the inside is bam, look at me. The start button in the Lamborghini is one of the coolest in the industry. I just love it. It lives underneath this red protective flap. Lift it up, and you can start the engine, but if you want, you can also start the engine by poking your finger through this little hole, and then it'll fire to life just as easily. Now here are the different gear choices in the Lamborghini. Park, reverse, neutral, drive, manual. Nothing too crazy, but the way you engage the gears is very unusual. First of all, reverse. To engage reverse, you pull back on this big giant flap. The whole thing pivots rearward, now you're in reverse. To put it into park, you've got a button for park. To put it into manual mode, there's another button for manual mode. But where do you select drive? Well, to do that, you put your foot on the brake and then you actually shift up on the right-hand paddle shifter, and that selects drive. When you go to start the Lamborghini, these little tweeters rise out of the dashboard. It's a really cool feature. Now, this car has an optional Bang & Olufsen sound system that costs over $6,000, $6,313 in total for the sound system. And then when you turn the car off and open the driver's side door, they glide back into the dash. The Lamborghini has a floating center stack here, which is pretty cool. So you've got this nice cubby that extends underneath the entire middle screen. This lower screen controls your climate control and your heated and ventilated seats. One thing I like about the Lamborghini is it doesn't share a lot in common with stuff like the Audis or the Volkswagens, because once again, this is owned by the Volkswagen Auto Group, but it feels pretty bespoke, and you can tell that because everything has kind of got this hexagonal shape, which is the Lamborghini motif. Now, when you look up to the upper screen, once again, that motif continues, but once again, it's very different than your typical Audi or Volkswagen system. I mean, the functionality is somewhat similar, but the overall shapes and designs are pretty different. The instrument cluster is 100% digital. You do see some carryovers from stuff like Volkswagen and Audi products, such as the design of the temperature and fuel gauge, but the actual instrument cluster is fairly unique. Of course, I've got a big central tachometer, speed is in the middle, and once again, a lot more hexagons are hiding there along the background. Of course, you can configure it and look at the driver assistance and fuel economy and that kind of thing. This right here is the selector for your drive modes, and of course, being an Italian manufacturer, the drive modes are in Italian. So Strada is just kind of your typical driving around street mode. Pull this lever back, you can go down into sport. That changes the suspension, it changes the engine and steering programming. Engage Corsa, the exhaust becomes a lot louder, the display changes dramatically here on the instrument cluster. Pull it down one more, Sabia, that is sand. So this is a sand mode, an off-road mode. It disables traction control, it displays a little inclinometer here. Terra is another off-road mode that also engages hill descent control. And then the very bottom one, that's your snow mode. Very satisfying clunk as you engage the different settings. Here in the central screen, we also have a display that shows you your drive mode. So Strada's got this background. Go into sport, the background changes a little bit, and you can see the suspension starts to lower. Corsa, that's going to be your track setting. Sabia is sand, and then you can see, check that out, the suspension starts to raise. raise. And then Terra. I do love the steering wheel on this Lamborghini. It's perforated, which is an option, a $1,321 option, but man, it's the perfect thickness. The stitching is just beautiful, and the quality of the buttons, they make such a nice little, can you hear that? What a great little click when you go to change a setting or adjust the instrument cluster. And the paddle shifters are beautifully made, and once again, a nice satisfying little click. If you want to go further, you can also configure your own drive modes over here using this right-hand paddle. So select Ego. I think that's how that's pronounced. Please, I'm doing my best here. But this button controls the powertrain, this one controls the steering, and that one controls the suspension. My favorite part is the standard go-to is actually called smooth, not normal. I like that, smooth. Down here are the controls for your parking brake, a shortcut to access the rear view camera. This right here is for your driver assistance. This is an automatic hold function, but my favorite feature down here is actually that little slot, which is built for the key. Keeps that key nice and secure in there. I love that. In the middle here, you've got two armrests, but as far as I can tell, they are fixed in position and they raise together, which is kind of interesting. But in the center armrest, you've got a place for your wireless charger. Let's see if it fits the bigger iPhones. Ooh, fits it perfectly, although it is a pretty small cubby and not very deep. The light controls are very interesting because they're not typical buttons. It's more one panel that's more touch sensitive. It's like a little haptic feedback thing when you select your different light controls. So you've got auto, you've got side markers on, and you've got off, and it actually gives you a warning on the instrument cluster, lights off. Now this is something interesting. That's an all-weather light. That's a little bit of additional light in the front if you're going through fog and the like. And here is your rear fog light. Check out this Lamborghini script in front of the passenger, pretty cool. And I love this little handle. It's also kind of in that hexagonal shape, and it's just, oh, it's so high quality for the glove box. It glides on down. Way back there is a little control. You can open it up and have some cooling in the glove box if you want to keep something cool. The seats in the Urus are very supportive, very comfortable. I also like this contrasting blue stitching. You've got a control down here for the seat massage. This one has power seats. Up top here is a Lamborghini embroidered logo that is a $956 option. In fact, if you want the power seats, it's also going to cost you, let me look here on the Monroney, $3,157 for the full power comfort seat package. I will say I'm very surprised by the backseat comfort in the Lamborghini. First of all, the seats fold flat, which is nice, but the overall space really is pretty good. This is my driving position at 6'1". I mean, I've got really decent knee room, which I'm surprised about. Headroom is just barely adequate. Luckily, the sunroof doesn't intrude too far into the rear seat, so actually, I'm pretty comfortable back here. In the rear here, you have two different climate zones for both rear passengers. You can, of course, adjust the fan. This is actually all a little digital display. Once again, these are haptic buttons. And then down here, we've got rear heated seats. That is like a $600 option, though. And then underneath the heated seats, some power outlets. This center armrest folds down. Of course, it's leather lined. And in the middle here, we've got two cup holders, but they are really tiny. That is not gonna fit your American Big Gulp, although it would probably fit your small Perrier. The Lamborghini has a very distinctive rear, and I love the dual spoilers. You got a spoiler down here, one up here, but if you want this rear spoiler down here with carbon fiber, that's gonna be a $1,500 option. We've got a serious wheel, tire, and brake package on this Lamborghini. In the front, 285 width tires. In the rear, 325s. These wheels are 22s, and those massive brakes are carbon ceramics. The hands-free tailgate back here is an $827 option, but it rises and reveals a really nice and actually pretty usable cargo space. One premium feature, and one I haven't seen on any other car, is the actual Alcantara in blue stitched view blocker. It glides out super gracefully on these little rollers, and then you can remove it. I don't know, it's just really, really high quality for something that really is just meant to block the view. These buttons back here will actually lower and raise the rear air suspension to help you load bigger and heavier items. Underneath the rear floor here, we have some essentials like the tire inflation kit, and perhaps less essential, the subwoofer. The engine is pretty special, as you'd expect in a Lamborghini. It is a 4-liter 90-degree V8 bi-turbo, which means it has two turbos. The horsepower output is 641, and it's supposed to do 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds, which is pretty incredible. Now, the coolest thing about the engine cover is this right here, these numbers, 137265548. It's a nice little touch, but that's the cylinder firing order. $270,364 is the MSRP on this Lamborghini. It's rated at 14 mpg according to the EPA in combined city and highway driving. Now, what do I think of it? I mean, it's just like a sensory overload. There's so many cool gadgets and gizmos on the inside and the outside. We're gonna have more videos on this Lamborghini soon, including what it's like out on the road, but let us know what you think in the comments section below. And as always, this has been Tommy with the Fastlane Car. Check out tflcar.com for the latest and greatest in new car reviews.